Hello everyone, my name is Corazar, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. We are back on the world on this very rifty day. We have rifts all around the house. We did. There are two out front too. Well, there were two. Cool. We have fewer rifts, but still, two. More than I want. And in between episodes I have been hard at work. I went and got some more blue clay, and I have more stored elsewhere. And I went ahead and am placing all of our used up copper pickaxes, our hammers, and making a copper shovel for the first time. Because I'm tired of digging at clay with flint shovels. Anyway, today, as you can see, it is very cold. If you look up here, it is under 0 degrees Celsius here. So it's pretty chilly. And you'll see that our body temperature, which is normally around 37.8 degrees Celsius, has hit, well, now 37.0. And that means that we're going to start getting cold and shivering soon because our body isn't retaining heat. And, well, that's partly because our clothing is in tatters, basically. It's all in such bad shape that it's basically just threads, and the wind cuts right through us, and these provide no warmth. Now, what will happen is, if we stay out here for too long, we will start to get sort of an icy vignette around our screen here, around our view. There's another rift right there. And eventually, once our body heat hits about 34 degrees Celsius, we will start taking damage. And yes, as you can see here, we even have ice starting to form on these ponds. And it will form starting from the edges of the bodies of water and working its way toward the middle. Now, water is a big threat in winter because you'll see here that as I go in and I duck beneath the surface, eventually should say we're soaking wet. And if not, then I'm going to go jump in deeper water. There we go. We are soaking wet, and you'll see that our body temperature is now dropping like a rock. We're losing about 0.1 C every, 3 or 4 seconds? And that's because water will, of course, chill you when you are exposed to the cold and the wind. In order to stay protected from the cold and to recover from it, we're going to go inside, and we're going to do the simplest thing we can. We're going to light a fire and stand next to it. Let's head in here, pick this up and drop it over here, and we're just going to light a single piece of peat on this fire. And you will see that very shortly our temperature will start rising. Here we go. Back up. And we will quickly warm up, and we should soon no longer be wet as well. And there we go. We are back up into the 37s. And I think I might go ahead and grab one more piece of peat and tuck it on the fire there, just to get us back up to our max temperature. But what about long term? What can we do to protect ourselves while we're out and about, and we don't want to stop and make fires every, 30 seconds to a minute? There are a couple things we can do. One is we could repair our clothing, and we could repair it with either linen or flax twine. And the way you do that is you pick up whatever you want to repair your clothing with. We'll do some flax twine, and let's say we want to do our tunic, because it gives us 2 degrees Celsius of protection. We would just left click on our tunic with the flax twine, and you'll see it has gained 10% condition, which will give us plus 0.4 C. Now your clothing will give you the maximum protection against the cold from 100% condition down to 50%, and once you get below that is when it starts dropping. So we could repair this all up to 50%, and we would get, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7.5, 7.8 degrees of protection. That's great, but that's a big expenditure of flax, and right now this is kind of a precious resource to us, because we don't have the ability to get any more for a while, at least not until spring rolls around. And while we have what seems to be a lot here, I have plans for this, and that is I want to save these for either armor or for windmills, and possibly both, although I don't know if we can quite swing both. We'll have to see. However, there is another option, and we have the materials we need right up here, because we have the ability to make fur-lined clothing. fur coat, fur gloves, and knee-high fur boots. Each of these gives us 4C from the coat, 1.5C from the gloves, and 3C from the boots. Compare that to our current boots, which give us 0.5, our overcoat, which gives us, I believe it's this one, is 0.5, and our gloves, which only give us 0.5. So we're getting more than double the protection by making these better clothes. And these are actually quite simple to make. All of these simply require your knife or shears, plus a pelt of the appropriate size, or pelts, depending on what you want to build with, in your crafting grid in different arrangements. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and make a few more pelts, and then we are going to, as the episode goes on, and these are done, we will turn them into the clothes. So, let's go ahead and get 2 large pelts, because we need a large pelt for the knee-high fur boots, a large pelt for the gloves, or 2 mediums, and a huge pelt for the coat. So, we'll just get that, and then we need the fat. And there we go. In 48 hours, we will have 3 pelts of the appropriate sizes, and we'll go ahead and continue making our clothes. Alright, clothing sorted, at least partly. What else can we do to prepare for winter? Well, in the previous episode, I noted that we have replaced our doors with these solid doors. We used to have those sort of see-through, kind of French door style louvered things, and these will actually protect us from the wind and the cold to some extent, as long as our rooms and our house are the correct size. And although I went over this in the last episode, I want to reiterate is that keeping your rooms to a maximum dimension of 7 blocks in any direction will help you stay warm in winter. It won't help if it's super duper duper cold out too much, but it will help slow the rate at which your body heat goes out. As you can see, we are already back down to 37.2, even though we are in this house next to where our fire was. So we will have to keep burning wood to keep warm, at least until our clothing is ready. But since we can't speed up that process, I think it's time to move on to the next thing, not starving. Let's go take a look at our food situation downstairs. So over here we have 4 vessels with all of our food in it. Let's open all of them. There we go. So we have a ton of onions. We have a good amount of spelt grain, some rye grain, a few turnips, some cabbage, a bunch of flax grain, and a little bit of fruit. Now, as long as we keep making meals and probably supplement with the occasional hunt, then I think this should be plenty for us to make it through winter. Also because we also have 24 liters of honey. Now, this isn't a ton of honey, but it will add a little bit to our fruit intake a little bit if we add it to porridge. However, aside from that, we won't be able to get any more fruit because fruit only grows when it's warm out. So we are limited to these berries here, which are only good for the next few days, this honey, this grain, and these vegetables, and of course whatever we hunt. But bear in mind that as winter goes on, animals' weight will decrease from good to decent to low, and when their weight is low, they will produce less meat and fat. So bear that in mind when we're hunting. We'll have to hunt more, which of course is more dangerous. But there are some other things we can do to make this food last longer. The food in this jar here is going to last us probably a long while. I mean, we have 1.3 years on some of these onions, 1.1. We have 75 days on the turnips, and they'll be gone long before then, and same for the cabbage. The grain is going to last almost 7 years, so no worries there of it spoiling in the winter. Our fruit, however, we have a few days. And the fruit is what I want to preserve the most, because if we let our fruit nutrition drop too far, we will lose hit points. And that means that we'll be more fragile throughout the winter until we can get more fruit in the spring. So we want to stave this off as long as possible. We gotta get our vitamin C in to keep scurvy from setting in. And we can do that by making food and preserving it, or by making jam, and of course preserving that too. Because in most dishes, we can only put up to a maximum of about 2 different fruits. If we make porridge, we can put 2 berries in per serving, but that's not going to get us through all of these berries before they spoil. But if we make jam, we can make a lot of jam and store it, and then it'll last a very long time. Let's try that. We have some more cooking pots up here, and to make jam, we're going to go down here, and we're going to get some berries. There we go. And we're going to get some honey, and let's go ahead and we're going to use a bucket. So here we go. We're going to add our fruit, and we're going to add our honey. Now, you will find that you might need to get a bowl out and manually input just enough honey so that you have 1.2 liters in each of these two slots. So for jam, you need 2 fruit of, I think, the same type, and then 2 slots of 1.2 liters of honey, or more specifically, 0.2 liters per unit of fruit. Let's go ahead and light this up, and we'll see what we get out of it. And of course, we can get some cooking ASMR in while we're at it. And there we go. We have a pot full of jam. And today I learned that you can actually cook a pot of jam on 1 piece of peat. Now you'll see in here, even in the sun, well, sun from the window, it is fresh for 88.8 days. And in our inventory, good for 31.9 days. Let's go see how long it lasts down in the cellar. If you put it down here, it'll last 1.1 years. And in here, the same thing. So that's pretty good, but we only have 4 cooking pots, and it's kind of inefficient to just sort of use each one for 6 servings of jam. We'd actually be using probably, well, we need more cooking pots than we have, because we have 4 more red currants, which is 2 more servings of jam, and 36 black currants, which is about 18 servings of jam. So we would need at least, I think, 2 more pots, 1 more pot, and I want to save 1 for our food. Luckily, we have another option, and that is to use crocs. Crocs are a long-term food storage solution that you can make, again, out of clay making, just like everything else that stores food. And crocs will store 4 servings of any meal. You can pull them right out of your cooking pot. And on top of that, crocs can be sealed with a lump of fat or some beeswax, and that will dramatically increase the time that they keep your food fresh. Let's give it a whirl. I think my trip to get blue clay will make sense to you now, as we're going to go ahead and make several sets of crocs. And crocs are made with this option here. You have a single one or 4. We're going to go with 4. And I'm going to make, I think we should do about 16 for now. We'll probably end up with a lot more in the long run, but starting out 16 should be fine. And just like every other clay making thing, you just use your clay and make your crocs. And there we go. We now have 2 stacks of 8 crocs. Now go ahead and put our spare clay away. And then we'll go ahead and come out here and start firing them. Fun fact, standing in front of these fires also warms us. We're back up at 37.8 again. Okay, while those are firing, I think we can come and check out our hides from last episode and the episode before. And we're going to move these over to our strong tannin barrel, where we will finally finish off these hides. And boy, was that painful. While those are firing, I'm going to go ahead and make us as many more pots of jam as I can, and then in the morning or afternoon, when those crocs are ready, we will go ahead and fill them from our pots. I'll see all of you in a little bit. Okay, folks, I am coming home. Our stuff is still cooking out in our pit kilns. I'm getting some fire clay for another part of our project today. But you see how my screen's starting to shake a bit? It might be hard to see if you're running at 30 frames a second on YouTube, but if you're at the high resolutions and frame rates, I'm shaking. And this is your first indicator and warning sign that you're getting cold. I mean, unless you're keeping an eye on your temperature here. And the longer you stay out here, the stronger your shakes will get. Ooh, hello. Hello, deep cave. Save you for later. And if you stay out long enough, then you'll start to see the icy vignette start to form around the edges of your screen. And it's just starting to show up now. Do you see it on the lower right-hand corner of the screen? If I stand on something dark, it's just a little bit icy there. And we're going to stay out of the water because that might actually really hurt us. But the icier you get, the colder you are, obviously. And once you get to a certain point, you will start taking damage. It's not a particularly fast way to die, just kind of like in the real world, and not a particularly pleasant way to go, but there you have it. As you can see, our screen is shaking more and more now. And we are down to 33.8 degrees Celsius body temperature. That is pretty chilly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll stand here for a couple seconds and let our vignette show up a little stronger. And I'll show you what it looks like. Here we go. Now we have some real frost showing up. I was about to go and jump in water too. Ooh, I hear friends. Let's go ahead and get inside. We're going to warm ourselves up by a fire. Let's just grab one piece of firewood, maybe two, and light this up, and our little freezy vignette should go away in short order. And there, it's starting to fade already. Okay, now that we're pretty well warmed up, let's go get our finished crocs out here. You will see that once they are actually fired, the crocs no longer stack. Now there are mods that change that, but in the vanilla game they do not stack. So beware, these can be space hogs. But luckily, we have a particular type of storage unit for them that works really well for them. And those are shelves. A shelf will store 8 shelfable items, and there is a list of shelfable items. It's not just crocs, but also things like resin and seashells and so on can go on shelves. And there's 4 on each shelf in a square, basically. We're going to go ahead and we'll make 2 of these since this is all we can make. And we're going to go ahead and put them... we'll put our empty crocs down here. So we'll go ahead and put shelves there. We can fill these up with our crocs. And there we go. Now, as far as getting our jam into the crocs, let's get down here and we will get our jam out of here. So we have 6 servings of blackcurrant in here, in each of these actually. It works out really well. The difference of 6 servings in a pot versus 4 servings in a crock is kind of annoying to deal with. So I tend to try to work in multiples of 4 if I can, which usually means making 2 pots of cooked food per 3 crocs. So here we're going to have 1 crock that has 2 servings in it, but that's okay. So all you have to do is put down your pot somewhere, get your crocs, and right-click on the pot. And you'll see right down here that the crock now has a little label on it, whereas here it's blank. So that will tell you that there's something in it. It won't necessarily tell you what's in it, although some things do actually have their own icons. But we're going to go ahead and get the rest of this. Now this one has only 2 servings, and if you have only 2 servings, you can go and grab another 2 from another pot. And there we go. And get 1 more crock for you, and you have the 2 servings in it. Great. Now, if this was any version except for 1.18.5, this is where I'd say, let's come down here and we're going to store our crocs on some shelves. However, specific to this version of the game, there is a bug where on a shelf, your crocs don't get the listed stored food perish speed multiplier. So as you can see, looking at these shelves, it should give us a 0.24x multiplier, maybe even lower if I drop this in here. Yes, no? No. Okay. However, there is a bug and it causes these not to work. In fact, it causes, specifically for crocs, your perish multiplier to not really work at all, except under one condition. And we're going to go ahead and fulfill that condition, which is you put your crock in a vessel or chest, along with at least some grain. This workaround, for some reason, allows the multiplier to kick in correctly. So for now, we'll be storing our crocks in here, but come 1.18.6, there should be a fix for this, and we should be able to store our crocks on shelves and not be savages about it. Now, as you can see in our storage vessels here, our crocks with jam will last 1.3 years. That's a pretty good time, and that's definitely enough to last through the winter. Now, let's just pretend that this wasn't good enough for you. Let's say you wanted to have more time with your jam, or any other food in a crock, really. You could take your fired crock and put it in your crafting grid with a piece of beeswax or piece of fat. Now, I recommend using beeswax if you have an abundance of it, which we do. If you happen to have a lot more fat, which is kind of rare, then go ahead and use that, but I do recommend beeswax. And you'll see that when you pick it up, it gets this green sealed indicator on it. Put it away, actually, if we hold it in our inventory, even on us, it will last 2.4 years. In a vessel, or on a shelf, it'll last over 11 years, 11 and a half. That is pretty crazy when we don't need that much durability out of our jam here. But if we did, for some reason, like if we were planning on going on a long trip and not coming back for a long time, then that could be handy. Now, other things typically don't last as long in a crock as jam does. So if you make, say, porridge and you put it in a crock, it's only going to last maybe 30 days down on a shelf. So then it definitely is useful to actually seal it and put it up, and then it'll last typically around a year. But I'm going to go ahead and finish up getting this last bit of red currant jam and putting our red currant jam away, and then we'll get on to the next item on the list. Okay, that's all our jam put away, and we now have, looks like 6.5 crocks full of jam, because this one is half full with the 2 servings of blackcurrant jam. Now, I'll come back from time to time to eat some of this when our fruit gets down maybe to the second notch here. I think 1 bowl of this, maybe 2, should fill that right up. And so the only thing we need to worry about now is our protein, but there are plenty of wolves spawning all the time, even though they will give us less meat. Well, we will still harvest them. We can also hunt other stuff too, and use those in red meat stew. That is an option, and I'll probably do some of that, but I am trying to preserve some of the animals around here for a future episode. Now, the next thing I wanted to cover is another means of preparing your food that we haven't touched on yet, and that is baking. Because we have access to a pickaxe now, we can actually start baking. Yes, I know it's weird that a pickaxe equals baking, but just bear with me. Give me a minute here. You will need a couple things to bake. 1, something to bake, and something to bake that thing in. We're going to start with what you bake in, and that is a clay oven. Now, clay ovens can only be made out of fire clay, so make sure you get some of that before you make it. But it can be made just like anything else. You use clay forming. Now, this is a very resource-intensive design here, so you will need to get, I think, a bit over a stack of fire clay to do it. Now, luckily, I just came back from a run of getting that, so we have several stacks here, but I am just going to make 1 for now, because they are kind of a long build. There you go. Once you make your clay oven, it'll mysteriously change facing. Very strange. Anyway, clay ovens can go anywhere you like, on a wall, somewhere else. Let's go ahead and we'll put ours right there. No, we can't really see it as well. We'll bring it down a block or so. Come on. Let's put you here. Now, I need to make it morning so we can go and do something else that we need to do. And I wasn't going to cover it in this episode, except that it was relevant. So, I will see all of you in the morning after I make these drifters go away. Alright, everyone. We are... Oh, there's a bear. That's a bear. It is killing all my animals. Well, that's not very nice. I wonder if we can lead it over to our killing pit. Will you come coming for me? Oh, you are coming for me. I didn't think you were. Oh, wow. Oh, he's getting close. He's getting real close. Let's get up in here as fast as we can. Oh, we lost him. Okay, get back here, dude. I don't like when you do that, bear. Come here, buddy. Yeah, come and get some. Come and get some. That's right, come and get some. Up we go. And in the trap. Okay. We'll deal with you later. Now, the reason we're coming over here is that this is a granite stone area, and we happen to need some granite stone. We don't need granite specifically, but granite is one of the stone types that will satisfy what we need today. So I don't want to go too deep into bear and wolf territory, since I haven't quite cleared out a whole lot of it with the shears yet. But since we have granite stones showing up on the surface here, that means we have granite right below the ground. So let's head down for a minute. Here we go. Drop some ladders. And the reason we need this is that we need to make what's called a quern. A quern is a relatively primitive means of grinding grains and other soft material into powder or dust or other fine elements. And these querns can only be made out of certain stone types: granite, andesite, basalt, and peridoite or peridotite. And while we do have some of the green stone down here, everything else is pretty much granite. Although I think, yes, we do have andesite down here too. And I believe we found some andesite. Is it through here? Where's the other one? One of our translocations I thought had andesite, but I could have been wrong. But this will do, and we only need 4 pieces of it for now. But we're going to go ahead and mine out a few of these. Not a ton, just enough to get a little bit. And I'll show you how you get stones, because what we need here... Oops, if I throw my pickaxe. What we need here isn't pieces of stone. We need stone blocks. It says granite rock. We need granite rock, as in one of these blocks. But how do we get those? Whenever we break them with a pickaxe, they just kind of fall apart. Well, what we have to do is we have to relieve the stone. And you do that by mining out all of the stone on all of the faces of a particular block. And that block will pop off and become an item that you can pick up. So I'm going to go ahead and mine down here just a couple blocks, just to give us some breathing room. And then we're also going to mine a little bit this way so we can get behind here and mine out the other blocks. There we go. So we now have a 2-block wide sort of wall here. And what I like to do is I like to come through and mine out a sort of checkerboard pattern on one side, like so. And once that's done, I come to the other side and I mine out the opposite checkerboard pattern, and you'll see, since this block here only has this stone connecting to it, when I mine it, that block will pop off. There we go. We have our first relieved stone right here. I am so relieved. But I continue the pattern of mining out the opposite blocks from the first side of the checkerboard pattern, and it is a pretty quick, efficient way of getting your relieved stone. It's not technically the most efficient material-wise, but it is probably the most efficient as far as time and effort that go into it. So from that little bunch there, we got 6 granite rock. That is plenty for what we need today. So I'm going to go ahead and, before we leave, we'll take a tippy-tap down here just to see what all might be down here. Cinnabar and cassiterite, and not much of either, so we will just probably seal this right up. Maybe with a little nub just to show that if we need more granite, we can come over there at any time. So let's head home and we'll make this quern and we'll put it to work. Okay folks, we are back and ready to roll. So to make our quern, we simply take 2 sticks, put them here and here, and we place 1 block each of granite rock there. Or if you have the green stone, the black stone, or the blue stone, that works too. They do have to be all the same type though. And we get our quern. Perfect. Now you will get copious amounts of little small stones when you are relieving large amounts of rock, and actually even small amounts of rock can result in a lot of small stones, but we will use these later. Don't you worry. These, we can make these disappear no problem in short order, but not today. Now, as far as placement of this quern goes, I think I'm just going to drop it right here for now. It's a convenient place out of the way. And we want to bake something in here. So what kinds of things do you bake? Well, mostly breads and pies. I mean, in the real world you can make cakes and I guess like fancy desserts and things, but in this world we just have breads and pies. And let's start with some bread, but let's prepare for some pie as well. We'll take a few of these. We need to first grind our grain into flour. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, one thing to note is that when you grind your grain into flour, it will reset the perish timer on your grain. So if your grain's been sitting around for a while and you grind it, you'll basically refresh the duration you have before you have to use it or it goes bad. It's not a good idea to grind all of your grain as soon as you get it, though, because again, if it sits around for a while, then that flour will also spoil. However, flour does have the same spoil timer as grain. Now, to actually grind your grain, you just drop it in the left side of the quern interface there, and hold down and right-click on the quern. It's not a particularly fast process, but it'll get the job done. Let's go ahead and we'll just make, say, I don't know, 8 of these. There we go. That should do for now. And once you have your flour, you need to find a bucket, like so, and get some water. Do not throw your flour into the water. There is a very good chance for anything that is sort of a small, fine thing, like grain or flour, that when you drop them in water, they will just disappear. So do not throw your grain in water thinking that you will turn it into flour or flour into dough. You need to take your bucket and put it in your inventory with your freshly ground flour, and you'll get dough of whatever particular type of flour you put in there. And then we need to bake in our clay oven. Now, in order to bake, you need to preheat your oven with some wood, specifically. Oh, that's new. It used to pile differently. Oh, and you can take it back out now. Wow. That's new. Interesting. I like it. I like it. It used to sort of just stack 3 across the bottom and 3 across the top crossways, but now I like it. So this is a single chamber oven, so you need to preheat it first, and then watch how your firewood stays at 0°C apparently, which is kind of funny. But yes, once this is done burning out, we will have a hot oven, and we can put our dough in it. There we go. We have our oven at 228, 227°C. We're going to go ahead and put 4 loaves of dough in there. And you'll see that they sit in there nice and tidy. And if you watch closely, you can actually see them rise as they bake. Although they typically will go to park baked first, and then they really start to rise. But we're not going to sit and watch them because we have more things to do. I want to make some pies, or at least one pie, to show you how this works. I am personally not a fan of pie. I much prefer to deal with pots and bowls of food, but pies are a good way of consuming things like cheese if you don't happen to have a lot of eggs around. Of course, we don't have cheese either at the moment, so moot point. Now, in order to make a pie, you need to have a table. And unfortunately, this doesn't count as a table, even though it's a nice flat surface. You actually have to have a table. And there are a few kinds of tables. Here we go. We have part baked, and it will start to rise a lot faster once it's part baked, and it'll become baked. Why make our table? Oh, and there we go. We have 4 baked loaves of spelt bread. Now, if we leave them in there, they'll continue to bake and they will burn and become charred. We don't want that, because while charred bread will last longer in your inventory, it does not give you as much satiation. But look, we turned that 60 satiation spelt grain into 300 satiation spelt bread. Is that crazy or what? Alright, back to the pies while our oven is still hot. To make your table, the simplest thing is put 7 boards in a pattern like this and get a wood table. And we will put you somewhere in our increasingly limited space here. I don't think we can do that, can we? Let's put you here for now. We'll fix it later. And to start your pie, you need at least 2 pieces of dough. Crouch and right-click, and you get an empty pie crust. You can then fill it up with whatever you'd like. Typically, anything that's not a grain will fit in here. You can put up to 8 of anything in here, and it does need to be the same type. You can't do meat and veggies. You have to do all veggies, or all meat, or all fruit, or all cheese. And then you have an option. You can either leave it like this as an open-faced pie, or you can put some more pie crust on, which I like to do. If you're feeling extra fancy, you can also right-click it with a knife and choose your pie crust top type. Let's go for this one, crossways. I like to do this for vegetables, just so I know what's going on. And we'll put that again in our oven. I was crouching and right-clicking, but you don't have to. And you get to go away for now. Now, the pie will bake just like the bread did. It will sort of rise a couple times while it is still raw, and once it hits the part-baked stage, it will begin to rise a lot faster. And there we go. We have a fully baked onion pie. Now, in order to eat your pie, you can't just right-click with it. You can't eat the whole pie. We're not savages. You have to put the pie down, and this doesn't require a table, just a surface, and right-click it with a knife to cut off a slice. And there we go. They all stack like that, and each slice gives us 240 grain satiation and 300 vegetable satiation. So you'll see that the pie doesn't quite give you the same multiplier on satiation as the spelt bread does. Spelt bread gives you a ×5 multiplier, going from 60 to 300. This is a ×4. However, the big difference is that bread doesn't pause your hunger like a bowl with a meal does. Pie does. So yes, while you're technically getting less satiation, this will actually keep you fuller for longer. Now, as far as perish time, both of these start with 8 days of freshness. We can again head down under here and drop these into a vessel, and we'll get 79 days, and we'll get 40 days. Of course, that's also because it's freezing, so this is a little longer than you typically see in like spring, summer, or fall. Now, I will come back and eat some of those as time permits, but it is time for us to go ahead and take a look at our clothing situation, because our pelts are done here. It is time for us to turn these pelts into some clothing. Now, one of these, here we go, will give us a fur coat from the huge pelt. That's what we want. And then one of these will give us knee-high fur boots, and one will give us fur gloves. Let's go ahead and put these on and see how horrible we look. There we go. And gloves and boots. I guess that's not too bad. It could be worse. I can dig it. Have it without our armor on. Oh, we still have our apron on over top of that. Okay, I can dig it. We get at least some expression aside from the sort of mottled gray of the fur coat. So good. And now, we now have, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5 degrees Celsius of warmth, which means that we can go down to about negative 8.5 degrees Celsius before we really start seeing the effects of cold. Now, if we wanted to, we could fix up our apron, get an extra 0.5, an extra 2 from the shirt, 2 from these pants, and a 0.3 from the belt. I don't see a real need to, at least not this year, but next year, once we start having a lot more flax to go around, then we probably will start keeping our clothes in generally better repair overall. But right now, I'm just not too concerned. I think 8.5C is enough, as long as we don't end up falling in water. And if we do, I'm just going to light a fire anyway. Anyway, everyone, that is about all the time we have for this episode of the Vintage Story Guide. I hope you enjoyed this sort of mishmash of different things that you need to take into consideration when winter is approaching, in order to make sure that you survive both the cold and the hunger. And I guess the animals, too. In the next couple episodes, I want to do a couple things. I would like to start working on getting some animals domesticated and captured, not in that order. And I also want to go and give our neighbors a visit. We have some traders to the south that we haven't visited, and I want to go see what they happen to have, as well as visit any ruins nearby and see what else is in the area. I'm not sure yet what order we'll get to those in, but that will happen probably pretty soon here. But we will also start seeing snow accumulate on the ground soon, and I already saw some while I was digging out lead the other day. Anyway, I'm going to go take care of this bear, but, as always, my name has been Corazar. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.